Good evening. This is Maestro Cortello with the Dawn of War 2 Retribution Elite Modcast. Today we have a 1v1 on Calderis Refinery. Our first player right here is a Blessed Spartan. He is playing as this Force Commander. Force Commander is a tanky melee hero. He can disrupt, he can punch vehicles, he can buff his troops with Battle Cry. Pretty good hero. His opponent is Big Booty White Girls. I like Big Booty White Girls. But anyway, he is playing as this Black Legion Chaos Sorcerer. The Chaos Sorcerer is a offensive spell hero. In many ways, he's actually defensive. But he is a mage, a spellcaster, really focuses more on using his abilities than on actually fighting with his weapons. So here we have a 1v1. Blessed Spartan is a pretty solid player who has been dying to get cast. He frequently complains in chat rooms that he never gets cast. And to be fair, he's better than some people actually do get cast. He's a pretty solid player. Playing as this Force Commander player right here. Now, I'm actually very interested in the discussion of this matchup. Right now we have the Force Commander against the Sorcerer. Recently, Texcalibur, one of the best players around and basically the best Sorcerer player, has said that the Force Commander is one of the Sorcerer's top 3 hardest matchups, and I am personally inclined to agree. When I first started playing the Sorcerer, I had heard that the Force Commander was an extremely tough matchup for the Sorcerer, although I personally did not really believe it. I just looked at the Chaos Army and I really felt like that the Sorcerer and the Chaos Army really have everything they need to deal with the Force Commander and the Space Marine Army. And in a way that's true. There really is just they have units that can deal with everything that the Space Marine Army has, and in many ways some of their units are superior. But it's more a matter of being able to afford it, being able to keep up on map control. In particular, the Force Commander gets a lot of free reign against the Sorcerer, especially in Tier 1. Now, in most matchups, the way you deal with a tanky melee hero is you kite and you focus fire. Now, if you were a Space Marine player against another Force Commander, you would use the Scouts, basically with 2 Scouts and a Tactical Marine squad. That would be 3 range squads that you could use to kite and focus fire a tanky melee hero such as the Force Commander. And if you look at most of the other armies, they can kind of do that too. Eldar can very cheaply field 2, if not 3 Guardian squads to focus down the Force Commander, and that's a fairly inexpensive way of fielding a lot of ranged DPS. It can certainly bleed and it's fragile, but it's still an inexpensive way of fielding a lot of early ranged DPS. Just the way the Imperial Guard army is designed, it's going to have a lot of early range DPS. Shooters, the Orcs are known for having that ridiculous early range DPS. And that early range DPS is, for the most part, something that does not really characterize the Chaos Army. As we can see, particularly with the Sorcerer. Big Booty White Girls has gone for double Heretics, so that gives him 2 melee units, as well as a Sorcerer who does not really function, does not really do much range damage, and in his vanilla form is not that great as a melee unit either. So the only real source of range DPS that Big Booty White Girls has, and that the Sorcerer, well, that Big Booty White Girls has right now, is this Chaos Space Marine squad. Now that's only 1 squad, so typically the way the Force Commander or any tanky melee hero will deal with that is simply by having his tanky melee hero tie up the Chaos Space Marines. Then they can't do their range damage, and if they're against a tanky melee hero, that's just a losing battle for them, even though Chaos Space Marines are pretty good in melee. Now, there are some ways you can deal with this. You can of course get a double Chaos Space Marines if you really want to, although that's generally not regarded as such a great build these days. It has its advantages, mainly that you can actually kite and focus fire the tanky melee hero. But Chaos Space Marines underperform a little bit in Tier 1, certainly for their cost, and particularly in this matchup. So it's generally not considered a great build. And the double Heretic build, it generally has higher impact. Now, these Chaos Space Marines, in addition to usually being the first target for the Force Commander, they will be very easily jumped by the Assault Space Marines. Now, Big Booty White Girls, I think he could really stand to get some kind of 4th unit out on the field. Again, he's only got these 3 units, and this build right now, I'd say for the most part is just not winning against what Blessed Spartan has. He has 3 units, he has 4 units, and particularly these Assault Space Marines. They are very easily going to jump and disrupt the Chaos Space Marines, and then once the Chaos Space Marines are off the field, that really gives the Force Commander free reign. And basically, I think he's just at a bit of a disadvantage. He's going to Tier 2. I don't know if that's such a great idea, in part because he has the entire Space Marine army coming up to bash his generators, and I don't think he'll have much ability to defend himself. He's got Chaos Space Marines coming out at half health. They will get jumped, and once they get jumped, they pretty much will have to retreat. And then there's just too much range DPS out on the field for these heretics to really do much. So he needs Blessed Spartan, Big Booty White Girls, he should really get something. To be honest, I'm not even completely sure what. But if we just run through his options, he could get a Havoc. That would be good. Obviously, Suppression is very useful in a lot of ways. Right now would get easily jumped and disrupted by the Assault Space Marines and then consequently easily forced off. But the Havoc would also make it easier to land Doom Bolts on the Tactical Marines. Big Booty White Girls could have gotten Raptors maybe. Now those, they would get, certainly they would also be at the mercy of this Force Commander now with the Power Sword, as well as Shotgun Blast coming from the Scouts. But that would at least give Big Booty White Girls a way to stall out the Tactical Marines, to initiate without getting most of his units focused down. Noise Marine's probably not such a great choice. Maybe, maybe not. That would at least give him something to counter Gen Bash. And right now, Big Booty White Girls has suffered a huge Gen Bash, which is going to put him, despite having a tech advantage and well, he didn't really have a tech advantage. He just had a shorter Tier 1. It's going to put him at a tech disadvantage because he has no power income. Looks like Big Booty White Girls has returned the favor a little bit, but then right now, Big Booty White Girls is pinned in his base. These Tactical Marines really did a number on Big Booty White Girls. I really think that Tac Flamer is very good in a lot of ways. First of all, it got rid of that entire generator farm, and especially with the way the armies were set up right now, Blessed Spartan was really able to just basically defend and stall out the rest of the Chaos army while the Flamer attacks just burned down that entire generator farm.
Support structure.
Now, it looks like Big Booty White Girls actually did do some counter-gen bashing with his back-bashing heretics. Looks like he got probably 2 generators and a node, which is not bad, but there was still 1 generator up, the point was still up, and he still hasn't even recaptured his own power node, so he's definitely going to be at a bit of a power disadvantage.
But he is not yet beaten.
And that, what with Blessed Spartan using that advantage he had to basically capture most of the map. Now, Big Booty White Girls has gone for Bloodletters, which is, I think, a somewhat questionable choice. But it is a little tough to... It is actually a bit of a tough decision to make as far as what to get in Tier 2 against the Force Commander. Again, the Force Commander himself, one of the great things about the Force Commander is that he really does have a lot of answers to many different things. And I often think that he actually, in some ways... compensates for a lot of Space Marine weaknesses. By comparison, I personally think the Apothecary is kind of like the opposite, where he more like overemphasizes the Space Marine strengths. But that Force Commander, who is actually dead right now, I apparently missed that. Force Commander, if we think about what Big Booty White Girls could get in Tier 2, he could get, obviously there's a Blood Crusher and a Chaos Dreadnought. Blood Crusher is a very situational, time-sensitive unit. Big Booty White Girls did have a tech disadvantage, so that Big Booty White Girls did go to Tier 2 first. So that he could have gotten that to give himself some bit of an advantage. Chaos Dreadnoughts right now are pretty strong, I think, just in how they function as a vehicle, so they put that pressure on your opponent to get a V because it's a vehicle, and yet it also functions as a V, so you're also responding if your opponent gets a vehicle. Like a Chaos Dreadnought right now would pretty much counter the Razorback, kind of. The Razorback certainly couldn't drive wherever the wherever the Razorback is. Bloodletters are what Big Woody White Girl's got, and I thought that was a little strange, considering we have one squad of shotgun scouts. Big Woody White Girls could easily get another. Those are mainly going to counter the tax, but again, and then the Force Commander himself also kind of counters that. Assault Space Marines jumping in. Assault Space Marines are actually not in a good position right now. They are going to maybe try to go for the Razorback, but they're getting hit by Bloodletters and Heretics. All right, I think they just barely get inside that Razorback, but that was really risky business for Blessed Spartan. Not a great jump. I mean, there was Heretic worship, so he didn't necessarily know what was there, but he was jumping his Assault Space Marines when they were pretty much at about half health. So that's allowing Big Booty White Girls to get a bit back into this game. Now these Bloodletters, certainly Bloodletters are good in many ways. Jump units in general are very valuable, but the Force Commander himself is getting murdered by these Bloodletters, and I was just about to say that obviously the Force Commander is supposed to act as a melee counter, so he should act as a counter to these Bloodletters, even though that was not quite the case there. Would do better if he had the Thunderhammer instead. Plague Marines would actually not be such a bad choice either right now. That's certainly a tier 2. That's obviously the last tier 2 choice you have. Not so great if your opponent doesn't get vehicles, but you always have to consider the possibility that your opponent might do it, and that's what Blessed Spartan has done. In fact, he's going for a second Razorback. Now we have a Chaos Shrine of Tzeentch right here. That's very curious. It's starting to shoot out some Doom Bolts at those scouts. But the way, unfortunately, Big Booty White Girls is really having a lot of trouble. I think he really needs to make his next purchase. His next purchase should probably be a Plague Marine squad. Basically, he's dealing with transports. He has no actual AV whatsoever right now. If he gets a Plague Marine squad, he could actually use that in combination with the Bloodletters to basically snare the Razorback and then have the Bloodletters teleport behind the Razorback and start doing some light AV to it. Power melee is not useless against vehicles, it's just not nearly as good as heavy melee. Now the only problem with that is obviously with the way Razorback play generally works with Space Marine players. Obviously they will usually keep shotgun scouts inside. It works in a lot of ways. First of all, if melee units come to attack the Razorback, you have the shotgun scouts jump out, and they defend by using the shotgun blast. You also have your repair unit inside the Razorback, and if the Razorback starts taking fire, they jump out and start repairing it. So there's a lot of unit synergy right there. Blessed Spartan has 2 Razorbacks, and Big Booty White Girls went for a Blood Crusher. That's a decision I personally don't agree with. That could pressure the Force Commander to switch to the Power Fist. So that would kind of sink the resources that he spent on the Power Sword. Power Sword, generally, very niche war gear, because the Tier 2 war gear purchases for the Force Commander are generally considered more valuable. Blessed Spartan is not playing very well with this Razorback right here and just kind of taking Blood Crusher hits. And he doesn't have much AV himself, although he is charging that Power Fist. And we have... Okay, we had Dark Flames right there. I think he wanted to do that because the Scout Squad was nearly dead, and he may have wiped the Scout Squad. But overall, not really a great use of red. In this matchup, I generally think you should really save that red for combining with Tome of Subjugation, combining Imperial Abyss with a Tome of Subjugation later on. Now, Blessed Spartan does not have any AV. I think he obviously needs to get some, because right now this Blood Crusher is giving free reign. And I guess one of the things I don't quite like about what I'm seeing in this replay is the players giving each other a little too much free reign in a lot of ways. But Big Booty White Girls now does have that Plague Marine squad, and the combination of the Plague Marines and the Blood Crusher should be enough to take out at least one of the Razorbacks. And maybe also the Bloodletters as well. But the Force Commander, again, is himself an answer to a lot of the Tier 2 things that Chaos can bring out. The Chaos Dreadnought, The Blood Crusher counters both of those with the Power Fist. Generally counters Bloodletters almost regardless of what war gear he purchases, although the Thunderhammer would obviously be the best. But basically I mean, this is a bit of theory crafting right now. And yet at the same time not. At the same time, this is something I'm saying based on my own experience. But I actually think that, especially if you go for a very light Tier 1 build with Chaos, it might not even be a bad idea to get a second Chaos Space Marine in Tier 2. It might actually be a very good idea. Especially then, you can upgrade them to Tzeentch, get all the other upgrades as well. And then you can have very effective range DPS that will be very good for kiting that Force Commander, as well as pretty much everything else. One of the great things about the Mark of Tzeentch Chaos Space Marines is that they really are good against anything that's not a vehicle, and they can even do some light damage to a vehicle, especially if you have two of them. They hard counter the scouts, and they counter the attacks. And when they're not being jumped on by Assault Space Marines, they will actually do a lot of damage to the Assault Space Marines as well. So, Big Booty White Girls he does have the double cap, so that is at least giving him, counting the VPs down in his favor. He has been very passive, though. I think he's waiting for Blessed Spartan to do something. He has Grenade Launcher Heretics. I'm not a huge fan of Grenade Launcher Heretics in this matchup, and given that, I think he could have that unit back cap a bit, go for some caps. And again, now this Force Commander has the Power Fist, and as long as he has that Power Fist, you can't really engage, you basically can't have the Blood Crusher really engage the Force Commander. Since if he eats a Flesh over Steel, you really can lose that Blood Crusher. Now here it actually looks like the Force Commander will go down. There the Force Commander was just in way over his head. The Blood Crusher was there and could have gotten Flesh over Steel, but there were just way too many other units. Tactical Marines being really annoying with that Flamer. Big Booty White Girls, I think, just has too many units in the middle right here. Now, of course, I think part of what Blessed Spartan is doing is having his Razorback patrolling, maybe just scouting around. That could actually be... Oh, Tactical Marines now in a little bit of trouble. Alright, but they do get out of there alive. Maybe if we had some Doom Blast from those casts, from those Heretics. So, Big Booty White Girls is getting the VPs to tick back down in his favor. But Blessed Spartan has done some of that economic damage. He is in Tier 3, ready to call down Terminators. Big Booty White Girls is going into Tier 3 with no resources to get anything. And he's been still suffering a lot of gen bashes. He doesn't have the side power nodes either. And he's trying to even it out by going for a generator bash, but I think it's coming a bit late. Blessed Spartan is already into... I mean, Blessed Spartan is basically just waiting on requisition to put down Terminators. And right now, Big Booty White Girls does not really have great answers to Terminators. He certainly has some. He does have the Chaos Space Marines with the Mark of Tzeentch, which will actually be doing a lot of damage to the Terminators. The Bloodletters will do a lot of damage as well. But I guess some of the main concerns are he only has one squad of Chaos Space Marines. The Razorback does go down, no combination of the Plague Marine Snare as well as that Blood Crusher. Now the Blood Crusher at least did manage to take out that Razorback. But then part of the issue right now, first of all, these Heretics might just go down. I think they will be really lucky to get out of there. But the Razorback will have a... No, that's got to be dead. Yeah, so Grenade Launcher Heretics down. Now, this Blood Crusher... Unfortunately, the Blood Crusher is a very time-critical unit. It's hard to keep it alive beyond Tier 2, and especially into Tier 3. Many things in Tier 3 very hard counter the Blood Crusher. First of all, Assault Terminators are an extremely hard counter to a Blood Crusher. Pretty much any tank would be a hard counter to a Blood Crusher as well. And a Predator is one of the best tanks, so that would be a very hard counter. And now we do have Tome of Subjugation, though, used to take out that Razorback. Very, very nice play, actually, by Big Booty White Girls. He got his Plague Marine Stare, and then he used the Assault and then he actually finished it off with the Assault Terminator. So a pretty good use of Subjugate there. I think the main thing he was missing, though, was he did not burn the teleport on these Assault Terminators, and they just teleport away right there. If he had burned the teleport on those Assault Terminators, they would have been kind of trapped right there with all this stuff, and they definitely would have lost at least a model or two, and if not maybe losing the entire squad. Now, generally, it's not a good idea to get Terminators, period, against the Sorcerer, precisely because of Subjugate, which he can combine with an Imperial Abyss, although I personally believe that using an Imperial Abyss against Terminators, for the most part, is a bit of a waste. Now, here that Blood Crusher is going down. It does not have a chance. Again, that Force Commander, just one Flesh over Steel, is really going to leave that Blood Crusher dead in the water, even with just the Force Commander, but especially with Assault Terminators. But again, Assault Terminators generally not a great choice against the Sorcerer, precisely because of Tome of Subjugation. Could just throw down an Imperial Abyss once he has subjugated them. Unfortunately, Big Booty White Girls can't do that because he's been using his red on other globals, which is something I personally disagree with. Now again, here, I don't know if the teleport is still on cooldown, but if it's not, he needs to use it to burn it so those Assault Terminators cannot teleport. But it's generally actually a bit of a waste to use an Imperial Abyss on Assault Terminators because you really don't need to. You can actually straight up wipe them just with the units that Big Booty White Girls already has. The Bloodletters, the Plague Marines, and the Chaos Space Marines, and even the Heretics. Looks like we have a lot of stuff going on right here. Bloodletters in a lot of trouble trying to teleport out. One model gets out of there. And those Chaos Space Marines also in quite a bit of trouble, but they will get out of there. Looks like they lost an Aspiring Champion. But unfortunately, Big Booty White Girls is not quite handling these Terminators very well. Because handled well, they aren't even really worth getting against the Sorcerer. Now that being said, there has been some discussion about, like, well, doesn't that make the Sorcerer a little overpowered? But the truth is that the Sorcerer would struggle a lot against something like a Land Raider. He would struggle a bit against something like a Predator. Those are choices you can get as a Space Marine player that would be very effective against the Sorcerer, and that he does not really respond that well to. The Sorcerer by himself does not do any AV, aside from maybe the Rod of Warpfire. And the Chaos Army certainly, I mean, there's certainly AV in the army, but it's basically Big Booty White Girls needs to rely entirely on his army for AV. And usually there are, just with the way Sorcerer builds work, and even Chaos builds work, when you're, I'd say especially with the Sorcerer, and especially when dealing with a hero like the Force Commander, when you invest in what you need to take out infantry, especially something like Terminators, that usually leaves you with a bit of a gap in your AV. Late game Blood Crusher is a really bad idea. But it looks like this game might actually be about over. Right now, I think the best purchase that Big Booty White Girls could actually make would be another Chaos Space Marine squad. Either Khorne or Tzeentch would actually probably be the best choice you could make right now. Since that would actually be the best available counter to the main thing that, basically to these Assault Terminators. Chaos Space Marines are pretty much the best counter that the Chaos Army has to Terminators.
Let our enemies beware, for victory is ours.
Alright, and that's the end of the game. Blessed Spartan gets his cast. Hope you enjoyed it. Have a good night.